morning and good afternoon to those joining us from other parts of the world. My name is John Frinjua. I work here at the West Africa Civil Society Institute. I'm the program officer responsible for policy influencing and advocacy. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. I would like to formally start our webinar this morning, but I'll first start with a few remarks. And I would like to say on behalf of WACC's governing board and management that you are warmly welcome to this last edition of the West Africa Policy Dialogue Series, WACPODiS for short, under the theme Digital Rights and Inclusion, a shared responsibility to promote human rights and technology in West Africa. This is the ninth and the last edition of WACPODiS this year. So we've done 8 editions of WACPODiS this year, and this is the 9th. And out of that, this is out of 13 webinars overall hosted by the Institute. I think that deserves an applause. And this, we've had massive representations from across West Africa and beyond. Today, we are especially honored to convene this dialogue on the International Human Rights Day to commemorate the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1947. So today actually marks 77 years of the global commitment to dignity, equality, freedoms, and irrespective of your race, irrespective of your creed or gender. So today's theme, which generally is framed along the lines of human rights, our everyday essentials, is a powerful reminder that human rights are not just abstract ideals, but actually are part of our everyday realities, including access to information, safety, equality, freedom of expression, participation, and justice. And for WACC and civil society across the region, this day is not just symbolic, but it's also a call for us to renew our resolve and to defend civic space, strengthen accountability systems, expand digital inclusion and governance in ways that match our current realities. And one area that this is very clear in our times is that of digital technology, which is now very much part of the human rights ecosystem. Digital access has become the backbone of learning, of healthcare, of education, civic engagement, and to mention just a few. Yet, when we look at these areas of our lives, it remains very uneven how it is distributed, and also even the presence is quite fragile in many dimensions. When we look at the millions that remain excluded because of high cost or because of weak infrastructure, because of geographical gaps or geopolitics or gender barriers, we can only say that this is not just a mere technology gap, but actually a rights gap. So we see internet shutdowns, we see censorship, surveillance, gendered online harassment and violence that restricts citizens' ability to speak, to organize, but also to participate safely. And this alone reminds us that digital rights are increasingly inseparable from democratic resilience. So today's theme is not just timely, but it's also urgent. And so to all the participants joining us from across West Africa and beyond, I want to say thank you for making the time to be part of this conversation. Your presence reflects our collective commitment to advance rights and digital inclusion across the region and beyond. So we look forward to your questions, your comments, your reflections, your contributions throughout this session. I also wish to take the opportunity to extend our profound appreciation to our distinguished panelists who are experts, practitioners, but also thought leaders who have worked at the frontier of governance, accountability, democratic participation, anti-disinformation efforts, human rights advocacy, and so on. We are grateful for the opportunity to learn from you and, yes, to steal your minds in the most respectful and productive way possible. So thank you so much. So please allow me to begin now by introducing our panelists who would help steer the conversations today. So in no particular order, I would like to start with Dr. Nansata Yakubu. Dr. Nansata Yakubu has over 20 years of experience in the area of peace building, research, advocacy across West Africa. She's a staunch human rights activist. When you think about Nansata, you know about advocacy. It's like Nansata and advocacy, are like synonyms these days. And she's a staunch human rights activist, and she's worked across the continent, working with international organizations, including Oxfam, UNDP, GIZ, Lead Afrique, Ghana, and several other organizations. Nansata has a PhD in politics from the University of East Anglia and an MA in international relations from the University of Ghana. Nansata is also a friend of the Institute, and we try to draw from her expertise every now and then. Thank you so much, Nansata, for joining us today. I will then move to Mr. Eddie Jawolo. Eddie is also a friend of the Institute. He is the executive director of Nemot Partners for Democratic Development in Liberia. He is a Liberian civil society leader with over 2 decades of experience running democratic governance, rule of law, and youth empowerment programs, and also nurturing organizations across the region. One of his flagship programs is the Young Political Leadership School of Africa that was founded in 2016, and which continues to provide mentorship for emerging young political leaders across the country. Eddie also launched the Liberia's President Meter in 2017, a pioneering accountability tool that tracks presidential campaign promises in Liberia. His work is widely recognized for strengthening transparency, accountability, and participation in Liberia and across the region. Thank you so much, Eddie, for making time to join us to share your insights today. And then we have Madame Jamila Boubacar. Jamila is also a friend of WACSI. In fact, Jamila is a former colleague, and she's Niger-based. And Jamila is an epidemiologist and a biostatistician, very passionate about human rights and feminism across Africa. She is the founder of NISAPAD, that looks at providing more or less public health support for women and young women across Niger and other parts of the continent. She is also the founder of, she's also the recipient of the Africtivist Award of 2021 for the work that she's done around social activism across the region. Jamila is a former Next Generation Fellow of WACSI and continues to make us proud across the region. Thank you, Jamila, for joining us today. And then the last but not the least is my brother and friend, Dr. Austin Ibe. Austin is a governance and development practitioner who has developed extensive experience across the region working with democracy and governance organizations, and also pioneering other democracy and governance programs. He has contributed to driving division study on online disinformation on online disinformation and public discourses across the region. Austin previously served as a program manager at the International Republican Institute. He has also had stints at the he has also had extensive experience working at CDD West Africa, but also the West Africa Democracy Solidarity Network, which is based here in Accra, but works across the region with a number of partners. Thank you so much, Dr. Ayube, for joining us. So thank you so much. So this is these are our expert panelists who will be helping us today. I would like to start the conversation by reorganizing our list. I know that the speakers, you've already had your agenda, but I would like to reorganize it a bit just to ensure that we get the best out of our conversation. So I would like to start with Dr. Nansata Yakubu. Dr. Nansata Yakubu will help us with the framing around digital rights as an everyday human rights. And then we can go to Eddie, who would help us around the framing around democratic governance and accountability tools. And then we can also go then to Jamila, who would help us around human rights, grassroots inclusion, and social innovation. And of course, Austin, who has also worked around regional issues, working with WADEMOS, working with the International Republican Institute, will also help us around framing the conversation around regional dimensions vis-a-vis ECOWAS, elections, and also democratic participation. So with that, I would like to throw my first question to Dr. Nansata. So Dr. Nansata, in what ways are digital rights connected to fundamental freedoms in West Africa? If you can help us just to understand these connections and how better to appreciate them, I think it will serve as a very good point to start with our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for this important conversation. And it's coming on an auspicious day, as you said yourself. The other connection is that we are also celebrating 10 years of youth peace and security. Issues around digital inclusion also borders on a lot about issues around security. So I'm happy to have this conversation today. When we talk about digital rights and the nexus, we have to first of all agree that digital rights are human rights and digital inclusion is social justice. And that West Africa's digital future must be built on these two foundations because they contribute to what we would call right respecting transformation. We all work in different sectors of the civil society, but we all agree on one thing, that when it comes to issues around social justice, we don't want to leave anyone behind. So to ensure that, we have to make sure that we operate from this continuum. And we have to realize that digital rights are not separate from human rights because they are an expression of fundamental freedoms, but it's just in the digital space. We talk about fundamental freedoms around the right to live, the right to assembly, and things like that. But we are just talking about how these happen when you take them into digital spaces. So instead of, for instance, meeting in a hall, you are meeting online, but it's still a meeting of a collective. And digital connectivity has increasingly also shaped, the access to these issues. You rightly mentioned in your opening remarks how these shapes issues around information, education, healthcare, civic participation. When you take these four, the connections become even more critical. So what are the correlates? If you look at freedom of expression and what freedom of expression means online, we are talking about the right to share your opinions, to be able to access information, and to participate in public discourse through digital platforms. And invariably, this also directly kind of extends Article 19, of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, about the Internet of Things, when it was amended. So you are taking these into the digital realm. When the UN Human Rights Council adopted this the resolution on human rights on the internet, this Article 19, 2021, is looking at a lot of issues about what we do online. And continuously, we push, because you would realize that for other countries, especially the developing world, and where we come from, like West Africa, issues around privacy and data protection, issues around access to information, assembly and association are always what we continue to contend with. And just to sum up this opening question you've also asked, we have to now look at what exactly would constitute digital exclusion. Because if digital inclusion is social justice, what then constitutes digital exclusions as a rights or human rights violation? In West Africa, these have been reinforced in a lot of ways. We have a lot of women and girls excluded from digital spaces because we face compounded, barriers to issues around education, economic opportunity, and political participation. So if there's no inclusion, then that's another step back. Then you have issues of access, and you have rural communities who are in the minority without connectivity. And that means that there's going to be a big marginalization to essential services, which include healthcare information and even government programs, and some of the work that civil society actors also undertake. Another group who are persons living with disability, they also encounter serious digital barriers, and this can deepen social and economic exclusion. Then you have youth in resources, economic opportunities, because maybe they are only available online. Then you have health. The list goes, on and on and see, and why we think that when digital inclusion is seen as an issue of social justice, then we will work more to make sure that the policy frameworks that we have, the practice, can also be adopted into policy for the context, the different contexts in the country that we work with. Those would be some of my opening comments on why this.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nansata. I think you gave us a very, very excellent overview, and it's really puts it on a very good plane to continue this conversation. What really struck me was the point that you made, and I don't think I would forget this point, that digital rights are human rights, and digital inclusion is social justice. I think if we have this in mind, I think it summarizes everything that we need to know, especially with rights, digital rights, freedoms, as they concern our everyday lives. So thank you so much, Dr. Nansata, for this opener. I would move on to Eddie. Eddie, you've worked at the frontiers of democratic rights, justice, access, participation, and all that. In what ways do you see digital exclusion reinforce or exacerbate the problems around human rights that we already face in the region?
Thank you so much. So I want to start my introduction by saying digital rights plus digital inclusion strengthen democracy. And digital right basically access to the internet. And we always agree that today, if there's no internet, we would not even be here to have the conversation. So this generation and this age is the digital age. And it run everything from democracy to development to human dignity across the region. And it is done that in West Africa, it's no more an option, but it's very crucial in terms of how we advance democratic development, how we advance accountability, how we advance inclusion. So today, yes, it's International Human Rights Day. We're celebrating it, and we know in the region that expansion of digital connectivity. But the major issue then is the cost of data across the region. If you go to my country, Liberia, it's very expensive. So it does also try to exclude people who don't have money to have access to the internet. If you come to Ghana, I always in Ghana, you realize that if you pay for internet in Ghana, you use it for months. And the Liberia is limited, so you either pay for for one more package, whether you use it or not, is in. You don't have access to it anymore. If you had to spend $1 to buy the $1 US to buy or a mini, it's only limited to 3 days. So these are some of the challenges that we need to work on. But now the work can move anywhere with all digital or access to digital platform, access to digital opportunity and digital art. So what we need to do now to make it very inclusive is to develop a framework that will make it accessible, that will make sure that everybody have access to the internet as part of our human rights. The world you cannot do anything right now without the internet. So we use the internet to mobilize voters, especially for democratic practices. We use it for election. We use it for economic purposes. A lot of online or still ongoing, especially for young people. You use it for research. You use it to do assignment, and use it to connect and make your voice heard on different media platforms. So it's a very powerful tool that need to be guarded. Also talk about digital protection, privacy also, so that people cannot use it for the wrong reason. But that will require a new type of education on how to use it. Because everybody, right now, you have a phone, you put a SIM card, you have the internet, you use it. Not much information on what you need to do and what you can do on the internet. So we need some digital education. Then we're coming in now with the AI. The AI is a new component that coming in now. With the AI, you can get anything. You can research me, you can find information, you can use it to do communication. So the AI is now becoming a new part of the digital world that not many people understand how to do it. It's basically not used by the young people more than the old people. So I think awareness, education, very important. Technology should be able to empower people. It shouldn't silence people. That would be one thing. The digital platform should be there to empower people. It shouldn't silence people. It shouldn't marginalize any group of people. It should be given the opportunity that at the university campuses, secondary school campuses, the government can ensure that young people have access to the internet so that they use it for research, which the government should be able to do that for them as part of their social responsibility to the citizen. And I think that again, there's no longer an option in West Africa. Digital platform is a fundamental foundation for democracy development, human dignity at the digital age, and connectivity has spanned across the region. So too much the commitment for protecting privacy, safeguarding expression of interest, ensuring equality to access technology, and preventing digital exclusion should be one thing that we should work on. And promoting digital rights is a shared responsibility of the government, civil society, the private sector, and citizens themselves. So I will want to pause as my intro and look forward to the next question. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Eddie. Thank you so much. I think you've given us a different perspective, a very complementary perspective, which is great for us in this conversation. A few highlights. You said digital rights strengthens our democracy. I think that was very profound, and that alone we can take a whole day to even unpack that. And so, thank you for highlighting those elements of digital rights that really strengthen our democracy in the region. Like you said, it's no longer an option. Digital rights and access are no longer options in West Africa. We need them. And we need to confront the high cost of access, but also the infrastructure challenges and how it is even used in this digital age. Thank you so much, Eddie. And I would move to Jamila. Jamila is joining us from Niger, and so I'm sure you will speak in French, but I would proceed with my question in English, and you can proceed with your responses in French. With our interpreters will do the interpretation. So, Jamila, you have dedicated much of your life to women, working around women and gender justice, working around feminism, and human rights. And I would like you to situate your responses around that experience, especially around gender norms and socioeconomic inequalities. So my substantive question for you now would be, how do gender norms and socioeconomic inequalities shape digital exclusion, particularly for women and marginalized groups?
Je m'appelle Jamila Sahabi Boubacar, je suis nigérienne et j'ai été stagiaire à WACSI 2021-2022. Donc, je suis, comment dire, la moitié d'un produit de WACSI. Merci beaucoup. Pour la question, moi, je travaille depuis 2019-2020 à Niamey au Niger sur tout ce qui est question de droits des femmes, droits des jeunes filles, surtout l'accès à l'hygiène menstruelle. Et je travaille avec des ONG comme ONU Femmes, UFNPA, UNDP, sur tout ce qui est question de droits de femmes, surtout en milieu rural, plan international. Donc, je travaille avec des ONG comme ça sur le plan rural, mais aussi urbain, pour tout ce qui est droits des femmes, santé d'hygiène menstruelle, pas seulement, mais aussi droits des femmes de manière générale, droits des femmes et des jeunes filles surtout. Là, on parle d'un contexte qui est de comprendre les droits numériques comme les droits humains au quotidien. Avant d'aller sur les droits numériques, j'aimerais, parce que comme l'a dit mes prédécesseurs, ceux qui ont parlé avant moi, les droits numériques sont des droits humains aujourd'hui. On ne peut pas parler de droits humains et ignorer, on ne peut pas parler de droits numériques et ignorer les femmes. Ignorer les femmes et les femmes et les enfants qui sont les groupes plus vulnérables par les sociétés africaines. L'Internet aujourd'hui n'est pas un luxe. C'est en train de devenir cet outil qui non seulement nous complète, parce qu'on travaille avec Internet, on fait des business avec Internet, les femmes font beaucoup de business avec Internet. En milieu rural, Internet a commencé maintenant à faire un élan. Au Niger, depuis que j'ai commencé à travailler avec des femmes, j'ai compris que quand on parle de droits et qu'on parle d'Internet, ces femmes ces droits sont un peu arrachés aux femmes. Je m'explique parce que c'est pas aujourd'hui, on pense que c'est un peu arraché aux femmes parce que les femmes font beaucoup plus des activités qui hors Internet, beaucoup plus hors Internet. Mais ça, c'est quelque chose qui est beaucoup plus fréquent en milieu rural. Comme j'interviens beaucoup plus en milieu rural, mais Internet vraiment facilite beaucoup de choses aux femmes et aux filles parce qu'aujourd'hui, avec Internet, on peut, quand je prends l'exemple des femmes en milieu rural, on peut calculer son cycle menstruel aujourd'hui avec des applications numériques, mais aussi des femmes peuvent vendre avec Internet, on vend des produits avec Internet, on fait la promotion des articles avec Internet et aussi, ce qui est très important, c'est qu'on dénonce avec Internet. On dénonce avec Internet parce qu'aujourd'hui, je pense qu'on est au mois de décembre. On est en plein, je pense qu'on vient de finir les 16 days of activism, les 16 jours d'activisme contre les violences basées sur le genre. Cette année, c'est le thème qui a été employé, c'est vraiment l'accès à l'Internet comme un droit, parce que c'est vraiment un droit de pouvoir jouir de son Internet, de pouvoir jouir du téléphone portable, d'Internet, quand quelque chose nous arrive en tant que femme, de pouvoir dénoncer sur Internet, de pouvoir vivre une vie saine sur Internet. Aujourd'hui, les femmes sont menacées sur Internet. Les femmes elles sont mises de côté parce que, pas mises de côté, mais les femmes voient leurs droits arrachés à travers Internet parce qu'elles ne peuvent pas faire une journée sans pour autant avoir un message assez bizarre de quelqu'un qui les menace ou juste parce qu'elles refusent de donner leur numéro de téléphone, quelque chose comme ça. Donc ça, c'est un droit vraiment de pouvoir vivre pleinement sur Internet, comme tout le monde, comme tout un chacun, que je sois une fille, que je sois un homme, de pouvoir jouir de mes droits sur Internet. Et en travaillant avec les femmes au Niger, j'ai compris qu'on n'est pas encore arrivé au stade où Internet résout nos problèmes. Et on est en 2023, enfin, au 21e siècle, on est en 2026, 2025 au 21e siècle. Donc, Internet ne doit pas être un problème aujourd'hui pour la majorité de ces populations nigérienne que je connais plus amplement. Vraiment parce que même quand on prend l'aspect des droits numériques et à l'inclusion, c'est quelque chose qui vise à garantir que chacun ait accès aux compétences pour utiliser Internet. Pour utiliser Internet, il faut protéger ses droits fondamentaux en ligne, par exemple les données, les expressions, et combattre ainsi les fractures numériques et assurer une participation équitable des services publics à la société, notamment les femmes et les hommes, qu'on puisse être équitable de manière, qu'on puisse jouir d'Internet de manière équitable aujourd'hui sur les réseaux, que je sois femme, que je sois un homme, que je puisse parler pleinement. Quand j'ai un problème, que je puisse me libérer. Internet doit aussi nous servir à se libérer, doit servir à dénoncer, à se libérer et à se faire entendre. Parce que nous, c'est vraiment ça au Niger qui est un problème parce que de manière générale, même pas qu'au Niger, quand une personne dénonce sur Internet, elle a du mal à se faire comprendre, elle a du mal à se faire accepter et à se faire accompagner. Parce qu'on va dire que c'est une femme, on va dire que c'est elle qui a peut-être commencé ou bien on va te dire, elle aurait dû juste répondre au monsieur alors que c'est pas ça le problème. Donc, Internet aujourd'hui ne rend pas la vie vraiment facile aux femmes, mais c'est un outil qui est indispensable pour le bien-être des femmes et des hommes de manière générale.
Thank you so much, Jamila. That was an excellent one as well. And for me, I'm particularly glad that you brought the gendered aspect to the conversation and actually taking us deeper into issues with the internet and what that means for access, what that means for rights, what that even means for the economic progress of women and communities, rural communities. What particularly struck me was the fact that internet is still great for us, but also it also has that other aspect of it that can also be used as a tool to really clamp down on women. And in as much as we are looking for expanding ways to expand the rights and access to digital and internet rights for women, we should also be looking at how to build or strengthen the capacity of women to respond to some of these threats using the same technology. Thank you so much, Jamila, for bringing that perspective. And I would like to move on to my senior comrade, Dr. Austin Egbe. Thank you so much for joining us, Austin.
Thank you, John.
Austin, thank you so much, Austin. So, Austin, your work has really cut across the region around democratic governance, around participation, elections, and I'm sure that internet and then digital access have been really crucial components to the work that you do. And so I want you to look at this at a broader level and give us, your insights on them. We've heard about shutdowns, we've heard about censorship, we heard about surveillance, online freedoms, and all that. Jamila just talked about the double, side of the internet, being a good and also being a bad in some respects. So my question really would be, how are these issues, internet shutdowns, surveillance, censorship, and other digital issues affecting or impacting civic freedoms across the region, but also democratic participation in terms of elections, principally in West Africa?
Okay, so that question was it looked very long, but let me try to break it down. So, just riding on what has already gone ahead, three powerful speech has gone ahead. So let me begin by trying to, again, Madam Yakubu said, digital rights is human rights. But let me be it in terms of expanding so people don't look at it beyond just human rights as it were. So for me, digital rights is the right to freedom of expression online. It includes the privacy, access to information, and it also includes data protection, because it's important not to undermine data protection, because what you're talking about now, surveillance, crackdown, digital suppression, they all connect back to one's protection online. And it also includes accessible, equitable access, the low, the high, urban, rural divide. So across West Africa, there is the move, a very strong move. For instance, in Nigeria, we are gradually talking about having about 140 million Nigerians who have access to the internet. That report is from the National Communication Commission, the agency directly responsible for internet management or connectivity management and all of that. So in West Africa, the World Bank has reported, there was a World Bank-backed digital economic platform where across West Africa, there's a huge penetration of the internet, which means there seems to be access. Again, it depends, like we talk about the Nigerian model research or the data, 140 million. That 140 million, who are they? Where do they live? In Nigeria, you know that you have about 5 major or thereabout, 5 major internet service provider or mobile provider. You have the MTN, very strong. You have their names keep changing. You have Nine Mobile. You have all of them provide internet access. Some individuals, one individual can have 3 or 4 of those internet. Does that amount to that 140 million? That's something that we need to look at. But the Nigerian broadband has come up to say that there are about 48.1% of penetration in Nigeria. Again, using Nigeria as the largest market in West Africa. In Benin, for instance, the country has been able to adopt some e-governance measure, and that e-governance measure required the internet. Elsewhere in Ghana and across West Africa, internet penetration is very important. So why is this important to my work? I'm looking at it from the democracy perspective. You see, my brother from Liberia said that we are in this call today because it's made possible by the internet. So we are discussing. So let's see, we want to discuss things around Guinea-Bissau. I don't have to be in Guinea-Bissau to make commentaries on Guinea-Bissau. In fact, I'll tell you something that happened when the military took over. And I said to Channels Africa Radio in South Africa, and I said that coup was staged. And the people were like, staged? I said, yes, it was staged. I was not in Guinea-Bissau. I just understood following information on online space because it's accessible, following conversations that were coming out from Guinea-Bissau. I simply understood where the trajectory was going. The first person who made the call, the news that broke, everything tend to focus on an area. That's the power of internet. Internet has a deluge of information. Sometimes there's a weak part of it, like you said, the good, the bad, the ugly exist. And if you look at how internet has helped elections, it is overwhelming. The Ghana election of 2024, December, the internet played a huge role. You see how the internet expanded the conversation, dealt with, even though it also had its own misinformation, and disinformation has spread along the internet use. But it also came up with countering those information as quickly as possible. So there are notable gains, whether there's what they call internet resilience. In the last 2022-2023 year, Senegal has recorded substantial improvement on internet penetration. You saw how the internet helped the Senegalese to protect their democracy. All of the things that happened in Senegal with Macky Sall as president, who refused or who made an attempt not to leave power, you saw how young people use the internet. If you compare that 2024 with 2012, you are going to agree that the penetration or the use of internet actually gained momentum and provided more information across the globe of the situation in Senegal. If you compare what happened in 2024, the kind of information that was in the public space, And what happened in 2012? The same thing happened. WAD, the then president, wanted a third term, and it was resisted. Many people didn't know what was happening in Senegal. The same atmosphere happened. People were killed, suppression, invasion of young people on the street against the protest. Fast forward to 2024. The same thing that worked for Macky Sall, he wanted to use the same against the people many years after. That's 2024. The internet created an enablement for the people of Senegal to rally around themselves. And in fact, the diplomatic community became observant of what was happening in Senegal. For the first time, ECOWAS will release a statement actually asking the government of Macky Sall to proceed with the elections. That was an important perspective to bring on board. And beyond that is what has happened in Nigeria. Even though we know in the 2023 election, there's what is called the glitches. The glitches. I cannot explain what that means, but the glitches, that's the downside of internet. Internet mobilized young people to go to the poll on election day in that February election of 2023. But what later will happen? What was not called shutdown, because I only call it shutdown, but they call it glitches. Because young people and Nigerians were expecting the result to be uploaded online where they could follow the result through. Suddenly, the electoral management said there was a challenge with the platform. And what will later happen was what Nigerians will later call the manipulation of the result process. So the internet has, in fact, the good, the bad, the ugly, because at the end of the day, more Nigerians were expecting to see results online. They actually undermine results physically. So you see where so there was a diversion of people going online to wait for results, whereas those who were doing the job on the ground were busy actually performing their role offline, knowing what will happen online. So fast forward to crackdowns or shutdowns. Privileged Nigeria had experience of the then Twitter, which is now X. It was shut down because the Twitter, let me use it because we're talking about past tense now, which is X. I'm sure people understand. President Buhari then, now late, had made a post, and a lot of people reported the post. Twitter had to take the post down. It was not funny for a president. And you know his age. In Africa, we respect age. Apparently, got angry, his age came around, and Twitter was shut down. It deprived many Nigerians access to their daily bread. A lot of Nigerians who use Twitter for economic purpose, for digital governance, access was denied, and their work in billions across the country went down for the period of that shutdown. We're not talking about Uganda, where ahead of election, internet usually shut down, but that is not what happened in West Africa, so to say. But dictatorial administration, authoritarian administration in West Africa are beginning to learn that pushing people online and then shutting that online down actually has opportunity for them to perpetuate themselves in power and then oppress any decent voice that will come up. Just a way of summary, because time is of essence. So there was, at the Garden of West Africa Internet Governance Forum, there was a more focus, there's now an increasing focus on data protection, privacy, and digital governance in a way that enhances people's presence online. So that, number one, freedom of association online does not translate to physical arrest, even though right has limitation. What we say your right, where your right stops or where your right ends, that's probably where another person's right begins. So when you are online and you use it for the wrong purposes, you can actually run against the law. And that should be treated as legal, but not to shut down an entire system for you to prosecute one individual, maybe who has gone against the rule, then you shut down the entire system to punish everybody who uses the system. So it's important to look at those areas. I just want to stop here because of time. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you so much, Austin. This was brilliant. It gave us a very broad overview and also very good examples of success stories in West Africa, looking at Senegal to be specific, but also some of the not so good stories, looking at Nigeria to be specific. I really also appreciated the idea about, in the internet helping us do cross-border democratic rallying, and also getting us to, get involved in the, democratic rights and journeys of other West African nations, even in our own confines. But also the idea about the internet, and also the, its important components as far as freedom of rights and freedom of online expression is concerned. Those are the issues of privacy, the issues of access, the issues of data protection, and equitable access, which we continue to advocate. So thank you so much, Austin. I think I have succeeded in helping all of us here steal the minds of our expert panelists. So I would like to open the conversation now to comments, questions from participants joining us from across the region. So if you have questions at this moment, comments at this moment, please raise your hand, or you can put it in the comments box. I will be monitoring it here and then calling colleagues one after the other to have the floor. Please, I would suggest that you are brief with your questions, and if your question is directed to a particular speaker, please make that clear, or if it is directed to all the speakers, please also make that clear. And if they are just comments, please keep your comments short so that we can get the best out of our conversation, because we still have a section to do. Yeah, thank you so much. I would start with the hand that I see first.
Yes. Hi, Joseph Adona.
Yes, Joseph, please go ahead.
Yeah. So this just to ask some few questions, and then maybe some of them are probably suggestions. How can governments, telecoms companies, and civil society collaboratively address the growing digital division in West Africa, especially for women, rural communities, persons living with disabilities, whilst ensuring that no policy or technology solution further entrenches the existing inequalities? So that's one. So the second one, with rising concerns around the surveillance, disinformation, and data misuse, what practical framework or accountability mechanisms are needed to safeguard digital rights in West Africa, and how we can regional cooperation strengthening the protection across our borders? I think all the speakers touch a bit of all of it, but I just wanted these two clarities, some solutions.
Thank you, Joseph. I think I have, but in the absence of any other moment, I would allow the panelists to respond. Any of you can open your mics to respond. They're just two substantive questions, and you can choose which you would like to respond to. Thank you.
Okay, so I can give some of my submissions on that. So first, there's this data, that supports the deepening digital divide. The data is there. Government has some of the data. We also have a lot of other organizations. We all know about the Affordability Alliance, so we know that the data is there. We even have, if you come back to the continent, you have Afrobarometer data that talks about, access and immersion, how many cell phone users and all that, as well as the AI. So that kind of data, it's there. there must be a recognition that there's a deepening digital divide. There's an issue about immersion, there's an issue about access, and then there's also an issue about what kind of services. Now, when that kind of research and data is available, there are like about four different areas that we would have to look at. There are multiple dimensions. First, you have geographic. Urban areas are advancing whilst rural communities fall behind. That's a taken. We all know that. If you think that's a joke, just try to move out of. If you live in Accra or you live in Lagos or Abuja, try to travel more into the hinterland. See how much of you, even just a call voice that you'll be able to do. Then you also have the issue about gender dynamics, and we have a recognition that women and girls remain significantly underrepresented in digital spaces. It's a given, and then the interesting part is that the flip side is we also have a lot of technology facilitated gender-based violence issues that are not being addressed significantly by even CSOs and governments. Most times when you come to GBV, people just look at the issues around domestic violence, the traditional and pragmatic things that we've been doing. But the technology facilitated ones, we are not looking at. So that's the place that we have to also make a pitch for. Then we have issues about wealthy populations accessing high-speed services, whilst poor communities struggle with basic connectivity. We have that issues around bandwidth, as we just said. The persons with disability continue to be distance through website issues, applications, and content design with the accessibility considerations. There are a lot of times that cannot be used by everybody else. And the cost of applications, that's another one that, we have to look about doing. Now, what's in the name? There are a lot of legal frameworks that we've also put up in countries to guide the digital space. And those frameworks sometimes help in not working for us. What's in the name of calling a digitally progressive act as cybercrime? So immediately you say cybercrime, you're already crowding out a whole generation and a whole way to work around issues of digital inclusion and issues around social justice. Or you say cybersecurity act. We securitize the digital space in a way that even just picking your phone to call somebody, people are, maybe my phone is being tapped. People are the confidence barometer of a normal person, on using the internet on your phone. We talk about interoperability, banks, how free you should be to use your phone to pay, how all those kind of issues are things that we have to look around. What have governments done? There are a lot of things that, especially in West Africa, governments have done in investing. There's a lot of investment in community information and to bring connectivity to undeserved areas. This has been in partnership with telcos. Every country has its own ideas of telcos, but we also all know about undersea cables that link all of us. At the ECOWAS level, you have plans that have always been in place, and then expansion of the Data Protection Act and things like that. You have had innovation hubs, tech innovation hubs. You would see them all around countries. But these hubs also tend most times to be based in urban centers and not really taken down to rural areas. But then you also have a core group of people, tech entrepreneurs, who are busy positively disrupting what rural communities can do. And a lot of it is also in agriculture, in business, and like microfinance, small loans kind of tech processes. So those ones are issues that we can do. But the current trends in West Africa is still a dichotomy. We have the opportunities, and then we also definitely have the challenges of what it means. But I think one thing is agreed across the sub-region, that it is not enough to say that we are in the digital space when it is not working equitably for all of us. We must continue to do more and make sure that in West Africa, every country context can also be defined by some of the issues that may be much more affected. It's not every country that has the same issues. We have those kind of things. We're not the same. Every country has different issues that it does. Then the final one is, what as civil society, what can we do I think most of the time, civil society continues to advocate for digital access, for equity, for immersion rates, for information and all that. Governments, on the other hand, have always continued to push more for security, to push more for protecting the space and to gatekeep, our access. So I think in the new frontier, civil society must begin to look at working on government policy frameworks and gatekeeping, around digital access. That is something that we must continue to do more possibly. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nansata. I don't think there's anything useful for me to add here because you've really dissected the issues and provided more information and response to the question. Do we have any other colleague who would want to take on the
Yes,
second question?
yes. I just to add to what she said. I think one of the things we need to realize that most of the people who own the digital companies are not from Africa, and they come to Africa to make business. So the government develop policy and regulation. That's where civil society need to work with the government to see the regulations, the different policies, and how do we as West African or African identify African with the expertise and get them together, organized and get them support to be able to monitor the platform and make sure it's accessible, it's responsive to the need of the people, and it's value for money. That would be my recommendation. So civil society not just continue to advocate, but sometimes collaborate with the government to go deeper to understand what the regulation, what the policy, what the laws, and how we can advocate through the parliament to make sure that the law is in favor of the citizen. And to do that, we need our citizens in our respective country who have the expertise. Not all civil society have the expertise in a particular sector. Those with the expertise can come together and develop a program that will be supported by government or supported by ECOWAS to make sure that the platform first protect human rights, protect our privacy, and also make sure that every citizen has access to the digital platform as a part, like I would say, a part of human rights. And how do we use it? If we're using the digital platform for elections and we don't have access to the data is controlled by a foreign company, we also have problems. So we need to make sure that in Africa, we train our own people how to get it done and properly monitor. I was speaking to a group of young people and I said, what happened if they just decide to cut Africa out of the internet connectivity because they don't own my house? What will happen? It's difficult because you can't even move, you can't even use Uber if you don't have an internet. You can't even be able to access to transfer money to your relative and friend if you don't have internet. So the whole world now is connected to internet to make it work, to make it responsive. We need to now pick it up as a country, as a region. How do we make it responsive and at the same time protecting privacy of citizens? That will be my contribution.
Thank you so much, Eddie. Thank you so much. Jamila, and I think Austin wanted to say something, so both of you can be brief.
Ce que je voulais dire, c'est quand on parle de droit à l'Internet et tout, et qu'on parle de l'apport de l'État, ce que l'État peut faire dans nos pays, quant à l'accès et à l'équitabilité, à l'égalité sur l'accès à l'Internet, l'équitabilité sur l'accès à l'Internet. Je me dis que, en fait, les plaidoyers qu'on doit faire davantage, c'est des plaidoyers pour que les jeunes femmes, surtout les femmes, puissent aller vers des secteurs comme la communication, des secteurs qui va les inciter plus à travailler dans le domaine de la communication. Ça veut dire des secteurs comme l'ingénierie, la télécommunication, des secteurs où les femmes seront devant des challenges, les femmes seront, devant avec les hommes pour sortir les grands projets, pour sortir tout ce qui est avancé technologique. Parce que quand on parle de technologie dans nos pays africains, en tout cas au Niger, les femmes sont vraiment un peu moins actives que les hommes. Donc, moi, je pense que côté plaidoyer, qu'on peut appuyer l'État dans ce que l'État fait déjà, c'est vraiment des plaidoyers qui permettent déjà à l'école, qui permet aux filles d'avoir une notion sur la télécommunication, sur l'Internet, maintenant l'accès à l'IA, AI. Donc, vraiment qu'on puisse booster ces filles, qu'on puisse les encourager les filles à aborder ce type de secteurs comme la communication. Voilà, tous les secteurs qui peuvent les amener à vraiment sortir des grandes avancées technologiques.
Thank you so much, Jamila. Thank you so much. Austin.
So two or three quick points is number one, the question in response to the first question about what can government do, investment in infrastructure plus rural communities. There's a need to expand broadband and mobile internet access infrastructure across the rural communities in a way that enhances accessibility. Second, digital literacy and capacity building. This is key. In my work, I have seen gender disinformation, online violence, TFGBV, technology facilitated gender-based violence is on the rise. We need literacy, digital literacy. I'm not sure we'll be able to change platform moderators to begin to align with certain trajectory. But what we can do is to build resilience, particularly for women in politics, because they are facing digital violence. The kind of violence offline is dominant online. Cyber stalking, all the things you see on the physical landscape is now back, is physically online in the online space. Digital literacy, capacity building. Women need to understand this resilience measure, and we need to support to local content and services. That's what government can do. So on the second question, I just wrote the two questions together, which actually talked about disinformation, literacy, awareness. In fact, sometimes what you classified as fake news may not be fake to another individual. Fake news became very pronounced during Trump 1.0. Anything that Trump didn't like, it would classify as fake news. But beyond fake news is the mindset behind it, whether it's actually disinformation, misinformation, malinformation, or a propaganda machinery. All of those matter in this conversation around landscape, and that we need to strengthen civil society participation and oversight, empowering the media, empowering civil society organizations, tech communities to monitor digital rights abuses and advocate for inclusion and shape some form of internet governance policy. Thank you, John.
Thank you so much, Austin, for summing this series of recommendations so beautifully. Thank you. We have one more hand. So Fatima Tassi, please go ahead.
Oui, bonjour tout le monde et bonjour à John, bonjour à toutes les participantes, participants, bonjour aux panélistes et félicitations. Je voudrais féliciter WACSI pour la pertinence de la thématique à l'occasion de la célébration de la journée des droits de l'homme. J'ai eu à bénéficier des programmes de WACSI, notamment sur le renforcement de capacités en matière de cybercriminalité et autres. De façon ramassée, je voudrais dire qu'aujourd'hui, le numérique, c'est une opportunité, c'est un outil d'inclusion sociale, mais malheureusement, il faut dire qu'il y a un grand défi par rapport à la sécurisation de l'espace numérique. Et comme vous l'avez dit, je ne veux pas me répéter, je suis tout à fait en phase avec vous. Je voudrais juste souligner la Convention de l'Union africaine contre les violences faites aux femmes et aux filles, qui a été qui a été adoptée du moins en février 2024 et qui demande aux États de mettre sur pied des politiques et des lois fortes en matière de prévention, de prise en charge effective des cas de violences faites aux femmes et aux filles, y compris les violences numériques. Et je pense qu'aujourd'hui, c'est le lieu vraiment d'arriver à vulgariser, porter la connaissance de cet instrument très, très important, donc à la portée du public, mais faire le plaidoyer aussi auprès des États pour que cette convention soit ratifiée. Parce que jusqu'à présent, il n'y a que 6 États qui ont eu à signer. Donc déjà, il faut un nombre de signatures suffisant pour que la convention puisse être de façon effective puisse être adopté de façon effective. Donc, il y a ce problème-là de signature. Maintenant, faire le plaidoyer au niveau des États pour que cet instrument puisse être ratifié. Parce que vraiment, ce n'est plus des conventions avec des dispositions générales, mais là, on demande aux États de mettre sur pied de façon et de mettre également des budgets qui sont assez suffisants pour pouvoir travailler dans la prévention, mais également dans la prise en charge des cas de violence, y compris les violences numériques. Merci.
Thank you so much, Madam C. It's always a pleasure to have you, and thank you so much for the comments, especially around the challenge in the digital sphere, which you also highlighted the African Convention Against Violence to Girls, which you have highlighted the need for advocacy to adopt, but also to domesticate what we have we have ratified. So it's an additional recommendation, and I think that it's important that we also take that seriously as part of our advocacy moving forward. So thank you so much, Madam C, for bringing this into the conversation. So we are now making a shift to our final part of the conversation. Like I said, we have two parts of the conversation. The first one was more of the opener, giving us a broad context, the issues and all that. Now we are looking at solutions. Some of the, in the conversations, we have some solutions as well, but this particular session will be looking more at the solutions, but also what commitments can we make to ensure that digital rights becomes fully part of our rights ecosystem, especially in this particular region of ours. So thank you so much, colleagues. Thank you so much, participants from across the region. Thank you so much for all those who have made comments, and to our distinguished panelists. So I would start in no particular order. I would want to start with Eddie. So Eddie, we are looking at reforms can really what reforms can really help in this situation. What reforms are urgently needed to protect online freedoms, but also to help advance democratic participation, civic space, activism, and all that are crucial to our democracy, or the health of our democracy in the region.
Yeah, as I was saying, I think we all agree as speaker that digital rights and inclusion is very important for the region and quite across all the different sectors, whether for democracy, human rights, rule of law, economic governance. It's all important. And I just want to say that West Africa must protect online freedom, expand connectivity, and ensure technology benefit everyone, not just few. That human rights do not disappear on the internet. It involves, and it is a shared responsibility among civil society, the government, and citizens. It's evolving, it's new, and it's adding up. We need to ensure that we want it and to transform it in a way that benefits everyone. We know there are challenges with the issue of women, for my sister speaking about that. Yeah, women, but even the men also suffer from internet bullying. I experience it also, especially when you are activists and you go after a politician on issue of accountability. They pay their agent to come after you on social media. So it's a win-win situation, but we are getting there. Are we where we want to be right now? No. But are we making effort to get there? I think yes. I think we're making effort to get there. And I love the statistic that came up from some of the speakers about the penetration. But I think also that if we look at the positive, then we can build on the positive and make it more better. In teaching about my country right now, Liberia, for the first time we have online registration for university students. We are helping them have access to using digital platform to enroll into university by registering, not just moving there. People are doing online courses. You can say in West Africa, that do a course in different part of the world. People are making business. People are building relationship using the internet. So it's a lot of positive about the internet. We just need to work with our government. Like I said, civil society, we need to sometimes collaborate and not all the time just advocate. We need to strengthen collaboration, get the best mind from civil society to sit with the government and sit with the company and say, how do we improve this? What do we do? And I agree that we need awareness. We need to educate the young generation and everybody on the responsible usage of the internet, that you can use it in a more responsible way. And I think it's a very good platform. The discussion was very rich. And I think we still have a lot of work to do at West African, but there are a lot of benefit if we use the internet in a more responsible way. And if we can collaborate with our government to make sure the regulations are strong and enforceable and that people who violate are punished. But at the same time, make sure that we using the internet, we use it for the right reason. That will be my closing comment.
Thank you so much, Eddie. Thank you so much. You highlighted the need for, you highlighted that this was a shared collective responsibility. And with that, I would really want to segue into the last point that you talked about, which is collaboration, the need for collaboration. But I would like to throw that question to Nasata. So Nasata, Eddie just rounded up by talking about the need for collaboration, and I would like you to take us to the next level of conversation, because you've worked around collaboration, worked around advocacy issues, and all that. So how can collaboration be improved to ensure that we reduce duplication and strengthen our advocacy efforts around promoting digital inclusion, access to infrastructure, and all that? Thank you.
Okay, so I will front load my discussion points by first reminding us that 20 years of active internet, for Africa, but we've always had to play catch up. When the internet arrived, it was a very interesting tool. It was a novel. Of course, we were behind, and we have always still tried to catch up. It's much better now than it used to be when the internet arrived. But what it also means is that we've taken a long time to try to understand how much of the internet we can use and for what purpose, to probably test the dimensions of what it means for governance, for civic spaces, for medicine, for all the different, kind of areas we talked about. So we've now in West Africa, I'm bold to say that we've come from a place of understanding, what the internet to be. And I think now most of what we want to do is to move to issues around action. We therefore have a lot of foundational policy frameworks that needs reform. We really need urgent, legal reforms, especially around what the internet can do to protect online freedoms, strengthen inclusion, but also to make sure it's actioned for advancing digital rights. And then we can explore multi-stakeholder collaboration models. Some could be CSOs to CSOs, some are government to government, some are government, private sector, and CSOs, because as you know, we have a very active private sector when it comes to issue around digital access and inclusion and supply, to the military and civic space issues are one area that we can collaborate. And those can include data protection and privacy frameworks. How do we make sure that our data protection legislation is comprehensive and aligned with international standards? You see, the thing with the internet is that you can't decide that I live in Nigeria or I live in Ghana, so I can decide to just make a call at this price and nobody can regulate it. You would see that you would have a pushback even from the global voice calling associating network or something. There's always, that thing. And we have too many data protection legislations scattered here and there. Anytime there's going to be a new initiative, and people are unsure, then there's something new. So we need to look at how we make this comprehensive and align, with standards that can help. And then we don't also have independent data protection authorities with enforcement powers. Most times, the player is also the enforcer. You are the one working on data protection. At the same time, it doesn't work that way. We need to be able to look at issues around independence. So you see issues around monitoring are much better ways that we can also look at how we will cooperate. Then we have limitations on government and corporate data collection. If you are a Ghanaian, you know what it means about our multiple identity data collection points. You do a bio for passport, you do a bio for Ghana card, you do a bio at your telcos, you do a bio at the bank, you do a bio at immigration, you do a bio. And tell me whether your fingers have changed. It's the same fingers, that they are testing. Why don't we have it to be able to correlate? I do one bio, you put my name, or you take a picture of my eye, and then but we don't. You have to do bios everywhere and hold over 6-7 different ones. So those are things that people are working on. Then we also have issues around protection for sensitive data categories. Health. Health is one of the areas that is there, and even our own identities. You can't just take my fingerprints and use it everywhere, or my iris and use it everywhere. What are the laws and things around those kind of things? There's much said about internet shutdown prevention, maybe not prevention, but internet shutdown. So I would leave that one for. But then we have issues around surveillance, oversight, and accountability. What are the legal frameworks that govern surveillance? What are the judicial authorizations? Our court systems even well mandated to look at issues around surveillance. When you put a CCTV up on your house and it captures somebody stealing from another house, can you tender that evidence in court, and for what purposes? Can the person challenge it on legal boundaries? We are not looking at things. What about whistleblower protection for those exposing unlawful surveillance? Then we have issues around online expression protection. There we have overly broad, what do you call it, cybercrime, false news, fake news, disinformation issues, provisions. We have all those, and how do we align, online speech regulations with offline expression regulations? We still have that because we need it online, but we still do activate a lot also from offline. And sometimes, as it's an offline mode that somebody will take what you said, and put it online. It's not every time you actively go online to put forward an issue. You can be doing offline. Somebody will just take it and put it there. How do we align those kind of issues as well? And then finally, what about the issues around digital inclusion mandates? That's the thing. We don't know to what extent, do we have universal service obligations that require affordability connectivity? Like, can Ghana say, okay, as part of the West Africa, we know now you can't say ECOWAS. We are decreasing by the day. So as we work to bring everybody back and become Nisomkens, as my Francophone brothers would say, we are looking at West Africa as we have it geographically. Let's leave the politics out. Can we say that we have a universal service about affordable connectivity, so that if whether I'm in Miami or I'm in Lagos or Abuja or Accra, there's a minimum connectivity that I can use. As I'm here, I have to find Wi-Fi everywhere. You can't have a service which is done like in the UK 3. You can take 3 and go all over Europe. You don't have those kind of opportunities. Those are inclusion matters that we have to. What about issue around digital literacy and how we integrate this into education curriculum? We are growing by the day in terms of digital, but the digital mandate, we are not developing it on the educational curriculum. You go to even primary schools now, people are still having to draw a computer monitor on the board and things like that. When we could just put something in social science, or what we need to call it social studies, about AI, how you catch up, how it's so fluid and dynamic, so that we continuously look at these kind of issues. And then we have issues around the final one on digital inclusion mandates. It's original coordination and what kind of support mechanisms they are able to bring out. We have an ECOWAS Supplementary Act on Data Protection Enhancement. Are we making use of it? We are looking at the African Union Digital Transformative Strategy implementation. It's very robust. We always have beautiful plans, but accountability mechanisms for member state commitments are still out of the way. Out of the way. How about regional CSO networks? That is our field where we have more control. How is our coordinated advocacy campaigns? Do we target regional institutions? Are we looking at peer learning and capacity programs that will position the next frontier of young people, of older people, of different people? We have the opportunity now for most of the CSO leaders. Let's say those who are transitioning maybe out of the space are far off, but there are a lot of us who were here before the internet was born. So we have a lot of experience that we can share on how it has evolved and developed up to present. Then we also have a lot of young people who can be futures thinking about how you expand internet. If you look at Gen Zs, they are not even digital natives. Gen X is. If you look at it, Gen Z are not digital. We used to think that they were the only kind of digital natives. We now have Gen X started off. Gen Zs have really accelerated. But what about Gen Alpha? You have a 6-month-old baby, you leave your phone, you come, the person is watching videos. They are the proper digital natives. Are we trying to see how we will build on this kind of thing? So there's a lot we have to do for coherence, in the system. And in the CSO, we have control of that. We can look mainly at collaborating with governance on making sure that the landscape is comprehensive. When we have fragmented legal frameworks, there's a lot of confusion and it doesn't help our work for social justice. That's what I can say about, at least in my corner, that's what I'm dealing with.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nansata. I think you have given us a wide variety of recommendations on how to collaborate and advance advocacy around digital inclusion, digital access. But you've also left us with some really good fodder of areas where we can advance our advocacy and activism. So, and I believe that if we pick if all of us here and our institutions just pick one of these several ones that you have mentioned to really focus on as part of our advocacy towards digital inclusion, I'm sure our region would become a much better place. Comrade Austin, I'm coming to you. But before that, I would go to Jamila. I would like Austin to summarize the set of conversations for this session. So, Jamila, I have a very specific question for you. And of course, that's also given your background. And like I said, from the onset of this session, we are looking at the solutions now and practical actions. So what actions, practical actions can you, can emerge from this dialogue to ensure that long-term rights respecting digital transformation, especially for women, youth, and communities at the margins? Let me take that question again. We've heard from the conversations from Dr. Nansata, from Dr. Austin, from Mr. Eddie, and of course, colleagues, participants. From the conversations, what do you glean? What are some of the practical examples? It might also be beyond this conversation, though. You can also bring in other perspectives that we haven't discussed. What are those practical actions that can ensure or advance long-term rights, digital rights and transformation for the vulnerable, especially young folks in communities in the rural areas, women in the rural areas, and women in general, basically.
Merci, John. Thank you. Alors, durant toutes les sessions, on a parlé de protection des données, on a parlé d'utilisation d'Internet, on a parlé d'assurer la sécurité des utilisatrices que nous sommes de Internet. Mais ce dont j'aimerais revenir là-dessus, c'est vraiment l'éducation à l'utilisation d'Internet, parce que nous utilisons Internet tous les jours. sans savoir comment réellement utiliser Internet. Parce que l'Internet est un outil qui est venu comme ça, qu'on a commencé à utiliser sans, sans mode d'emploi. Donc, on a commencé à utiliser Internet sans aucun mode d'emploi. Euh, Aujourd'hui, nous utilisons Internet tous les jours, mais sans savoir aussi qu'on a des droits. Pas dit pour les femmes et les personnes vulnérables, comme on l'a souligné. C'est un droit de parler sur Internet. C'est un droit de dénoncer sur Internet. Quand je prends le cas des femmes, c'est-à-dire quand une femme est agressée sur Internet, c'est son droit de dénoncer et c'est aussi son droit le plus légitime à ce que soit de bloquer la personne, soit de dénoncer et qu'on la croit vraiment qu'il y ait une action, en fait, qu'il y ait une action après cet acte. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, les gens utilisent Internet pour utiliser Internet. C'est juste pour utiliser Internet parce que beaucoup ne savent pas comment utiliser Internet. Et les plus vulnérables, comme on parle, c'est les femmes. Parce que c'est les femmes qui se font insulter sur Internet, c'est les femmes qui prennent tout sur Internet, des menaces, etc. Je ne dis pas que les hommes aussi rencontrent des challenges sur Internet, mais les femmes rencontrent plus de challenges. Donc, moi, vraiment, aujourd'hui, si je peux donner plus comment dire, si je peux amener un peu ma même mise sur euh, pour des conseils sur l'utilisation d'Internet, je voudrais aujourd'hui dire qu'il faut encourager les femmes à plus se former sur comment utiliser Internet, parce que c'est un droit légitime pour ces femmes de savoir comment utiliser Internet, de savoir comment bloquer quelqu'un quand il m'écrit que je ne veux pas, de savoir aussi voilà, comment parler sur Internet pour réclamer mes droits. Tout ça, c'est des choses où on encourage, c'est des manières de vivre qu'on encourage vraiment à ce que toute personne, soit, principalement les femmes, puissent s'acquérir de ces connaissances, qu'elles puissent jouir vraiment de leurs droits les plus légitimes. Parce qu'aujourd'hui, Internet, c'est un droit. Comme je l'ai dit au début, comme tous mes prédécesseurs l'ont dit au début, on utilise Internet pour faire de l'argent, pour vendre sur Internet, pour se faire connaître sur Internet. Donc, on a besoin que ça soit safe pour nous. On a besoin que ça soit un outil qu'on va utiliser avec éducation, parce qu'aujourd'hui, Internet est utilisé de n'importe quelle manière. C'est ce qui attire vraiment beaucoup de choses sur Internet, dans les violences verbales, qui ne sont pas sans conséquences, parce qu'aujourd'hui, si on remonte, il y a des femmes qui carrément délaissent Internet, leur compte, et elles sont vraiment actives parce qu'on les harcèle, le harcèlement en ligne. Il y a des femmes qui tombent dans la dépression à cause du harcèlement en ligne. Il y a des femmes qui vraiment ont des répercussions vraiment assez sévères à cause du harcèlement en ligne. Donc, c'est quelque chose qu'il faut vraiment essayer d'arriver à terme, à bout, grâce à une bonne utilisation d'Internet. Aujourd'hui, c'est pas toute femme ou toute personne de manière générale qui sait même comment bloquer quelqu'un sur Internet. Par exemple, moi, ici à Niamey, au Niger, il y a 2 ans de cela, on a fait des petites formations avec des jeunes où on les apprenait comment utiliser Internet, comment rentrer, comment bloquer quelqu'un, comment dénoncer quelqu'un. Tout ça, on a formé des jeunes de Europort, des jeunes qui rentrent dans la communauté pour vraiment porter la voix. Donc, on les apprend comment est-ce que si quelqu'un t'envoie un message que tu peux ignorer, que tu peux bloquer, que tu peux ne pas suivre la personne, ou quand la personne te suit, comment dire, désabonner du compte de quelqu'un. Tout ça, c'est vraiment, on les enseigne à une utilisation safe de Internet, ce qui peut réduire de manière assez conséquente tout ce qui est violence en ligne et tout ça, parce que ça cause vraiment beaucoup de dégâts. Merci, John.
Thank you so much, Jamila. Thank you so much for highlighting the issues again, but also providing concrete actions or examples of how to respond to that. A key one is the need for capacity, which can never be underestimated. I think it is crucial, and it is one of the core businesses of WACC here as a capacity building institute, and with the support of partners like Mott Foundation and Ford Foundation, we've been able to provide some support to organizations across the region to be able to build on their digital capacity and also rights. So hopefully we'll be able to sustain that training moving forward with our partners. But of course, we'll also be looking to collaborate with other organizations here in this call and beyond. Thank you so much, Jamila. Austin, I come to you. And you would help us with, the perspective again across the region, perspective that border on regional institutes or regional institutions, etc. Just to imagine what's the role of regional bodies here. How can regional bodies, when I say regional bodies, I mean ECOWAS, even though we know the state of ECOWAS now. But yes, ECOWAS still plays a key role in terms of setting norms across the region. The African Union, and we also have regional CSO networks like WADEMOS, which you are a key person within, and all that. So how can these regional bodies support a more coherent, rights-respecting policies to improve access and also safe use across the region? And with this, you can be brief so that we can call our panelists to just our participants to have 2 or 3 minutes to respond before we move to the last session. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's a simple thing because there's work in progress. As we speak, part of what we've been working on, there's a conversation around having some form of a CSO network in West Africa, going beyond just media, that has capacity to, let me try to remember the name, something like the protective community, something like that, where issues that have to do with shrinking, particularly shrinking the online space, because we have the same way we have the shrinking space physically, we are also having the shrinking online space. And you talked about restriction earlier. Sometimes when we want to talk about inclusion and creating policies or laws that enhances one over the other, for instance, we're talking about violence online, digital violence, particularly targeting women in politics. In an attempt to deal with that flip side, you may end up actually silencing certain voices. We know that online tech-facilitated gender-based violence is silencing voices, particularly of marginalized grouping, i.e., persons with disability, and of course, women. In an attempt to improve those voices, if we end up creating measure that is supposed to address those silencing of voices, we may end up silencing another set of voices. So there's a trade-off. And that trade-off is where you have regional convergence. For instance, I think it was at the recent internet forum where about 10 countries in West Africa gathered to try to identify the role of AI even in governance, because we are living online already. The physical space is gradually turning online. Not let me say gradually, in fact, it has turned online. That like more than half. Madam Yakubu just talked about more young people, the Gen Zs and all of that, who now literally live online. They have barriers because there are things they're also learning on the online space that does not translate to the kind of governance architecture you want to pursue. So you see protest online, and they usually say that there are no votes online. If you must vote, you have to go physically. So back to the role of ECOWAS and of course, regional institutions, regional CSO networks, is a coordinated mechanism where there is a convergence between government and people to discuss these issues of digital space, whether inclusion and all of that. Like I was saying, ECOWAS is on the verge of creating that convergence where there is protection of the civic space online. And part of it is to create a kind of technical support system where disinformation is dealt with appropriately. where cyber stalking is addressed, where online violence can be repelled beyond what we call the Cyber Crime Act, for instance, in Nigeria, or in Sierra Leone, the Public Order Act, and in elsewhere, that tend to string space, because somehow the Cyber Crime Act of Nigeria has negative externality, which may not have been intentional. Government institutions have begun to use the Cyber Crime Act to undermine freedom on the online space. Beyond that, while, like I said earlier, where your right online begins, that's where your right ends online, somebody's right has begun. So when you infringe on rights online, you can also be dealt with squarely, but do not use one individual who undermine rights online to then generalize. So there need to be that regional ecosystem where if my right is infringed upon as a Nigerian, I may and someone in Ghana is the one who is doing it, I could report those cases to a regional convergence where those issues can be addressed squarely and then discussed. I know that if you pursue me online and I see you as online rat, we used to call them online rat, or those treasure horse or so, I could report you, organize my team to report you, whether on Twitter or Facebook, on X or Facebook, Meta. I could report you, and that handle can be taken down. But beyond just taking down those handles is, again, digital literacy. At ECOWAS, CSO's organization, network organizations in the region, for instance, WACI is an institute for training majorly. How can you use those training opportunities in every training session that WACI engage in? WACI mainstreams this ideology of digital safety and all of that into every training. When you're in Senegal, whether you are going there for women empowerment or women political participation, you mainstream it. When you are in Nigeria, the same thing will happen. It doesn't matter what conversation, what training focus will be, but you mainstream a regional architecture that goes through a board. So for WADEMOS, for instance, focus on democracy, solidarity. In doing the solidarity across country, when can you always bring in, always, for instance, I play role as the advocacy officer. What at every conversation, we bring in digital. We bring in inclusion, we bring in advancement. And I will always say this, and it's important to state that the West African environment is unfolding on a daily basis. Policymakers, innovation, tech, everything is happening almost at the same time. But there need to be that convergence that manages all, because if you rely on just one state, for example, one country, they may abuse those fundamental rights. So is ECOWAS, maybe this will be a question, can we give it to an ECOWAS community court, which I know, you and I know, or ECOWAS parliament, for instance? I mean, ECOWAS parliament will be the best example. ECOWAS parliament that is more like an advisory to the heads of state and not truly a parliament of the people. So I'm just curious on what that ecosystem can be that truly represent the people. ECOSOC is at the center of conversation at this time, wherein the people will have to discuss issues of citizens across the West Africa region. Beyond dealing with heads of state, now we have the heads of state, we have parliament, we have the court, we don't have the citizen convergence. So as you move to the citizen convergence, it's also a mean for a critical technical system that deal with the tech angle, particularly with advancement and increment. Because today we are talking about e-governance. We are talking about disinformation, misinformation, with all of the good things, e-commerce, with all of the good things on the internet, there are also the flip side. How do we measure? How do we ensure that both sides are beneficial, that one does not overcome the other? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Austin. I think your last point indeed needs another webinar to unpack that. How do we respond to some of these issues? But I totally agree with you that we do need a convergence around the cross-border issues. After all, digital issues, internet rights issues cut across borders. I can sit here and abuse your rights in Nigeria, and the Nigerian police cannot come and get me in Accra here. but there should be a way to respond to some of these issues. And so I think we are almost at the tail end of our conversation. We've heard a lot from our expert panelists. We've heard quite a lot from our participants as well. And given that our time is almost due for us to close, I would suggest that if we don't have further comments, we can take like one more comment or question from the participants. Otherwise, I would move to the last session, and that is where I would hand over to the speakers to just share in a minute what they expect to see in terms of commitments that stakeholders should be making. Stakeholders, I mean civil society, the private sector, government, and also other relevant key stakeholders, what they should be making to make sure that we have progress on digital inclusion and rights beyond 2025. So I see Mamadi Sise, sorry, has raised his hand. Mamadi Sise, please go ahead. You just have 1 minute, and we'll move to the next session, the last session. Thank you.
Alors, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, Monsieur Sise.
Bonjour, vous allez bien?
Bien.
Ok, je salue tous les participants et tous les panélistes de votre brillante intervention. Je suis Sissé Mamadi Troua de la Guinée-Conakry. Je travaille au compte de l'ONG Union pour le développement et la coopération. J'ai une seule question. J'aimerais savoir quelles sont les procédures d'intégration dans l'espace CEDEAO sur le plan Internet ou numérique.
Merci beaucoup, Mr. Sise. So I think Mr. Sise's question was very direct, and it would have been great to have ECOWAS in the room, but I know that we have some colleagues here who probably would have a deeper insight into ECOWAS protocols or ECOWAS work around digital inclusion. So if any of you would want to respond to that, we can give that a minute response. Thank you.
Let me just to quickly say that that's exactly what I just said in my last commentary. So beyond protocol, because protocol is very critical. To get to a point where you now critical, like protocol on supplementary good governance and all of that, it's an uphill task. So what can we do by policy within the commission, first of all, and then gradually push up to the protocol? That's just what I want to say.
Thank you, Austin. Thank you, Austin. I think I saw Dr. Nasata. Were you trying to make a point?
Yes, so our engagement, we have to know that as CSOs, I think that we need an engagement strategy which will give us the real meaning of an ECOWAS of people. I know the parliament gets flack, but for people who have worked with the parliament and done a lot of work with the parliament and seen some of the work they've done, especially if you look at cabling, and when the EU met with the West Africa teams on how we do this whole underground cable, Glow was like one of the leaders, the telcos of it at that time. I think this is about the mid-2000s, 2007, 2006, thereabout. You would see that now they've moved beyond just making sure that there are acts on personal data protection. There's a supplementary act on personal data protection monitoring, how you monitor the implementation. Then you have issues around regional digital transformation strategies that have built-in accountability mechanisms. And then letting sure that the courts, for instance, front loads issues around digital rights litigation. So things about wherever you are in the region, how you are able to follow through, and then looking at issues on protocols on freedom of movement applicable to digital, digital services, how a phone moves. If you have a phone here, how it moves, all those kind of issues are there. But the point is that we all recognize the issues around capacity, even issues around access sometimes when you work with regional institutions. But I think there are quite a couple of CSOs that are well placed to lead on those kind of issues. So yes, we have expanded the conversation on free movement of goods and persons, services. Those things have expanded to look at integrating it within the digital space, but there's still a lot of work, that has to be done going forward. Those are some of the things around the ECOWAS that I can share.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nansata. I'm going around the panelists, so I would start again in no particular order with Nansata. Just one commitment that you think stakeholders should make to ensure progress on digital inclusion and human rights beyond 2025. You can choose which stakeholder you want, just to make it simple.
Yeah, I will. I think I will choose my own, which is the CSO collective, in all aspects of our work, because whatever aspect, it's a call to action that is well placed, and it's a call to action that I would look at as collective action for civil society organizations across the aspects of our work that we do. So whatever governance sector you are in, because we can mainstream issues around digital rights. But that said, I think this, when it comes to gathering data on any aspects of work that we do. We are quick to do it, but we have never really looked at issues about citizen-centered data on digital inclusion. And I think that's a place that we should commit to the big AIs or by government, that this is the number of people who have phones are using the demography between this age to that, or young people. I think we should do more as CSOs on gathering citizen, centered data for digital inclusion, because with that kind of evidence, data is queen, and you are able to use it for policy uptake. So those are some of the things I hope that it's a futures thinking approach, and I'm hoping to see that for most of us in the next year, which is next month.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nansata. Mr. Eddie.
Okay, thank you. I will be looking at WACC collaborating with regional body, including ECOWAS, to harmonize standard for privacy, cybersecurity, open internet access, and digital freedom. And it is time for civil society and tech actors, government to work together. Digital transformation is stronger when built through collaboration and transparency. And thank you for the opportunity to participate in a very active engagement.
Thank you so much, Eddie. Jamila.
Moi, ce que j'aimerais dire par rapport aux engagements des parties prenantes, j'aimerais dire aujourd'hui que vraiment tout ce qui est ONG, tout ce qui est partie prenante, doivent mettre beaucoup plus l'accès à une large accessibilité à l'Internet, c'est-à-dire former des jeunes sur comment utiliser Internet, une bonne accès à l'utilisation d'Internet, c'est-à-dire vraiment au-delà de 2025, Internet, au-delà de, par exemple, 2026 jusqu'à 2030, que l'accès à Internet soit beaucoup plus fluide par rapport aux parties prenantes qui sont là et qui peuvent jouer un rôle assez important dans tout ce qui est formation, dans tout ce qui est accompagnement des jeunes sur savoir comment utiliser Internet et avoir une bonne connexion Internet et un bon accès à l'Internet aussi.
Thank you so much, Jamila. Thank you so much, Jamila, for the recommendations. And finally, and not the least, Austin.
Thank you. For me, I think I will focus on regional body, maybe using ECOWAS as snowballing to the African Union. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement or Free Trade Area need to strive digitally. And one way to enhance that is to support countries to enhance or implement their own digital protection commission that we have in Ghana and of course elsewhere, to be able to harmonize data laws and make sure that they're efficient. Because just to transfer money from Ghana to Nigeria, it looked like one kind of heavy deal. You can then imagine African continental-wise, while free movement is okay, there need to be free e-commerce or enhanced e-commerce that you don't have to carry money across the border. Because if I want to go to Ghana today, I should be able to go to Ghana, swipe the Ghana bank and get cedis without having to go with dollar to then change to cedis. It's important that those digital atmosphere is enhanced. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Austin. And I would like to use the opportunity right now to say thank you to everyone. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our participants. And thank you to everyone who engaged us well online in our chats. Because of time, we were not able to read all the comments in the chat. But really, thank you so much to our panelists. I started by saying that we're going to steal their minds in a very respectful and productive way. And I believe that we have achieved that. Just imagine the wealth of information, the wealth of insight that has been shared here. On behalf of WACC, on behalf of the WACC Governing Board, and also our management, I would like to say a big thank you for helping us crown this last webinar of the year. This is our 9th WACPODiS of the year out of 13 webinar series here at WACC. And you've accompanied us from January to December. I want to say a huge thank you. Panelists to Eddie Jawalo, the Executive Director of Nemod Partners for Democratic Development in Liberia. Thank you. Nasata Yakubu, Development Practitioner, Governance Expert, Human Rights Advocate, Human Rights Expert, and also the Africa Director of Conciliation Resources. Thank you so much, my brother Austin. Thank you so much, Democracy, Governance, and Disinformation Expert, all the way from Abuja. Thank you so much for your brilliant insights. And of course, our very own Jamila Boubacar, speaking from Niger this morning, this afternoon. Thank you so much for making the time. Thank you so much for your insights. Thank you, everybody, and we'll meet again.